Let's see, it is 6, and I'm going to call together opening of this Wednesday, April 20th meeting of the Board of Commissioners. I will say the invocation, then we'll stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And so if you bow your heads, Lord, help us to live one day at a time. Help us believe that easy does it works. Help us to be reasonably happy in this life and to be supremely happy when we come to live with you in heaven. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This is up to our star, Sarah.
Johnson, excused. Crawford?
Talk to him
Here.
today.
Klaus?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Propa? Here. Lathrop?
I'm here.
Max Bowers excused.
Okay. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to the last minutes? Nobody? Okay, then they'll just stand as they're read. And then now it's, let's see. There's two sets of minutes, regular session and equalization meeting. How do we handle that?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve both the minutes of the April 6th regular session and the April 12th equalization meeting.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay. Any discussion? All those say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes. Now, Sarah, again, we're here for first public comment.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may at his or her discretion extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
I want you guys to realize that Sarah had that memorized. She did not read it. Right, Sarah? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Public comment, anybody, please don't be shy. Okay. Looks like no one's going to public comment, so then we'll go to approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda, additions? And I have a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, it's done by Kropa. And do we have a second?
Support.
Crawford is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Now we're doing consent calendar. That's starring Sarah one more time.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. All information identified on the consent calendar can be viewed in its entirety at www.grandtraverse.org. A, receive and file. 1, Roscommon County Resolution in support of Senate Bill 703. 2, Road Commission Monthly Report. 3, County Staff Report. Approvals, correction to board rules from administration. Budget adjustments from finance.
Okay, is there anybody that wants to remove one of those items from the consent calendar on the board? Staff? Audience? Okay, so we take a motion on this, do we?
Go
Go ahead.
I would move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Support.
Okay, that's by Crawford and supported by Sonny Wheelock. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Now we go to the special order of business, which is Veteran Service Dedicated Millage. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to realize that we're learning. This is a study session, and I need to know more, and I think we all do. So we're not making any decisions today. So who is going to do the presentation? Chuck? Okay.
Good evening, Chuck Lurchin. I'm the Director of Veterans Affairs, and I'd like to take a moment and introduce a few people that are with us tonight. This is a very important subject. Hopefully, we're going to be able to provide information and answer any questions that you might have that will allow you to make the best decision. Your Veterans Affairs Committee, our department is overseen by a citizen council that's appointed by the Board of Commissioners, which most of you know. With us tonight is Jim Wagner, who's the sitting chairman of that committee. The vice chairman is Jake Rossi, sitting next to him. Committee member John Block is with us tonight. Also with us tonight is Bob Roloffs, who sits on our committee as a representative of one of our contract services. He's with Benzie County. Also with us tonight is the president of the Grand Traverse Area Veterans Coalition, John Leffler. And kind of sitting in the back there is Jack O'Malley. And Jack's with us tonight because when we first started bouncing around this idea back in December, in January, February, a Friends Committee, that if a millage ballot proposal is placed, Jack will be chairing that committee, which is ready to form. They've already met 4 or 5 times, and they're in favor of it and would like to be a citizens committee to help educate the public or the electorate. So with that, I was able to provide you, you had asked us for an analysis of our current services, value to the community, value to the veteran, public demand, things of that nature, and also a memorandum from the Veterans Committee officially asking that a millage be placed on the ballot. And we had some frequently asked questions. Most of them we got from commissioners, and so we started putting that together too. So hopefully you've all had a chance to read that. And with that, I can stand ready to address any questions you might have. The committee members also wanted me to ask you that they're more than prepared and would like to comment, or if you have any questions specifically for them, as your citizens committee, they stand ready to do that also.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Jen, I had mentioned to you my concern of the Headley Amendment. Do we have any information on the exceeding of the Headley Amendment 15 mil cap? I believe it was Marquette County that passed a VA millage that put them into the overage on the cap, and I know Bob's office had done the constitutional language that would be required to be added on to the millage, which is the legal part of it, and that's good we did that, but I don't understand the ramifications or any kind of consequence to a county choosing a millage that exceeds the Headley Amendment cap.
I think the question that you asked was related whether or not this would have an impact on our bond rating.
Anything, yeah, any kind of consequence.
Yeah, in answer to the question on the bond rating, there is not an anticipated impact on the bond rating. In fact, it would free up additional resources.
And maybe, Bob, I mean, your office really was just involved in the legal language of the constitutional requirements for the...
The only legal requirement is if the county is going to exceed its 15 mil limitation, it has to be approved by the voters. And so the language of the millage proposal begins with, shall the 15 mil tax limitation on general ad valorem taxes within Grand Traverse County be increased as provided by Article 9, Section 6 of the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the County of Grand Traverse be authorized to levy up to 0.12 mils.
And when if this millage is passed at the amount that they're requesting, how far would we exceed the cap that we're at?
0.12.
That's it, 0.12. So if we were to consider a millage request amount for a slightly lower dollar amount, wouldn't that not make us have to go through the hoops of the Headley Amendment?
Well, my understanding from speaking with the equalization director is that we are at our 15 mil limitation.
Right now, okay.
That's, if I'm wrong about that, it's because, that information is coming from the equalization director, and I haven't heard anything different.
Okay. So that would be my primary concern on this millage and any millage that comes to us hereafter is, and then the question with the Headley cap is it a dotted line or a solid line? There's a 15 mil, a 17 mil, and a 50 mil, and I'm not certain exactly why there's those separations historically, why they choose those amounts. But there is, I think, a concern of perception for the exceeding of the limit as well as any kind of consequence. I mean, it's got to be set for a reason. State wouldn't do anything for no reason, right? I don't know.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I have a question then. Just for the public. If we pass this millage, I know, like, for instance, the Commission on Aging, they have their own millage, and there's a point where it runs out and you have to reapply for it. Is this like that?
Well, it's for a specific number of years. We're recommending 6 years.
6 years. Yeah.
On this one. At the expiration of that 6 years, an alternative funding source would have to be made, or you could go back for a renewal.
Yeah.
At that point, the way I understand it.
Now, just for the public's sake, they don't have this paper in front of them. Approximately how much a month is this going to cost a household?
According to our equalization director, the average household in Grand Traverse County would be $9.53 annually, about 78 cents a month.
78 cents. I was on a radio interview today, and that's what I said, 78 cents a month.
Did good.
So that was a good guess,
You
wasn't it?
did a good job on it.
Yeah.
I did not know.
And how much money will that, I know the mom, but I'd like you to say it out loud, how much money will that give us a year to help out the veterans?
That will totally fund our office, allow for a moderate staff increase, which is sorely needed, and that will raise, specifically, in the first year, that will raise $563,800.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions from the board? Ron?
With the average property owner, what's the value of that average property owner's property?
The equalization director did share that with me. I didn't put it in there. That is a house that is equalized or valued for tax purposes at $150,000.
So the house is worth $150,000, or the assessed?
I don't know for sure. That's not my forte, but we can find that out for you.
It would make a big difference for us.
Sure.
Anybody else? Carol?
You have in your frequently asked questions that it takes 30 days to get an appointment right now?
Unfortunately, yes. Right now, we're scheduling into the month of June with everything. So, and we've been kind of up and down this scale for the last 5 years or so. We weren't this far out since about 2011, 2012. That was right around the drawdown of Iraq and Afghanistan, so we had a lot of influx. Right now, a lot of the traffic we're seeing is being driven by a lot of things the state of Michigan are doing, and also things that the VA, the federal government, are doing as far as outreach and steering, essentially, veterans, into our office for the service.
Do you have any kind of emergency services for people who kind of can't wait 30 days?
We always have people, we run 2 emergency service programs, so we always have to have slots available for those. So people's schedules are adjusted accordingly so that there's always somebody available to address those issues on a daily basis when they do come up. So for what we would consider more routine things, we're about 30, 34 days out right now.
And what do you think if you have this additional case manager, what do you think it would, how would that impact the wait time?
We would like to see it eventually get down to between 7 and 10 days,
Okay.
which is much more reasonable
It
than
is.
30 days. I'll tell you right now, our front desk worker, I mean, people don't like 30 days. They just don't like it, so.
Sonny?
Chuck, what is the current wait time from the time we process the paperwork at the 30 days here before they get a response from the federal government?
Depends on exactly what it is we're doing for them. It can be anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to 3 to 4 years, depending on what we're doing for them. Average type of claim for a veteran with a service-connected injury or disability is 8 to 12 months. It takes the VA to process that. And then simpler things, if you will, such as a widow's pension or something like that, 90 to 120 days. And then, of course, the VA, if they're eligible for benefits, will pay them retroactively.
Yes.
Well, I'm kind of the one that set up this, as you know. First of all, I wanted to thank all of you for coming. I'm sure if you aren't veterans, you're working for veterans, so thank you. And that's why this has been a hard one, because I have to separate my passion and desire for helping veterans with my job, which is the safeguarding of our county funds and our budget. So I've had to remove that and look at this very objectively. And we're not here as a referendum on Veterans Affairs. I'm certain I speak for everybody in this room when I say it is a valued and important part of our county government, period. There's nobody that doesn't think that, and these questions certainly don't come from that. But this particular millage is a little different than something we've dealt with, because it's going to be replacing general fund dollars. And our job, as according to the prosecutor in a millage, is 3 things. Number 1, the legal language and things like that, which certainly you've more than accomplished. We set the duration and we set the mills. It's not our job to decide how great Veteran Services is or where we think you should improve. That's your job, or to praise the rest of it. But our job is to look at the legal requirements. So I have a lot of concerns about a millage that replaces general fund dollars. We had a 911 surcharge. I don't want to use the word millage because it wasn't. It was a surcharge. And it was done poorly from the get-go. It was marketed poorly. It was sold to the public poorly. There was a different story depending on which group you were selling it to. And I know that that's not going to be an issue with this group. And I know it's important that we let the public know where the dollars are going to go and what's going to happen. It's no secret that we need dollars in our general fund right now. And we're heading into 2017 with a $4.1 million structural deficit. This is not, unfortunately, while this is part of our general fund, it certainly isn't a solution to that. But I have a difficult time with taking departments and having them being funded separately. It's a tax. We call it a millage, but it's a tax. And then continuing to use those general fund dollars for other things. In our case, it will probably be debt. So I guess my question to you would be, what was your thinking in going for a millage that completely removed you from the general fund? And what's the goals there? And more importantly, just to reiterate the fact that if this does pass and go on the ballot, that it needs to be clearly educated to the public that we are removing ourselves from the county general fund and becoming kind of like an independent department, although with county oversight. So I guess I'm curious about the dollar amount and why you went for the dollar amount that you did, since that is our statutory job here, is setting the dollar amount. So.
And that's a very good question, and one that was debated amongst everybody quite vigorously. We feel that the services are so important, and I think a lot of people feel that way, and the county's position right now financially is so untenable and on shaky ground, if you will, that we needed to preserve what we have. And we needed to take the veterans and the veteran services out of that, if you will, political loop of is there enough resources available to fund the services that they need. And this was the way to do that. Another thing that makes your decision with this particular millage request unique is the original laws that were enacted to provide veteran services at the county level that were put in place many, many years ago provided boards of commissioners the avenue or the enabling legislation to raise the funds necessary to provide those services. Grand Traverse County has never exercised that. They've been able to do it with their general fund and not levy a tax on their property owners for over 70 years. And I think we're at a point right now where we do. We do need to do that. So we wanted to preserve the services we already have. That was first and foremost. And then secondly, we know that you don't have the resources available to you to give to us to expand those services right now. So those two were the main leading factors in so doing this. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's really,
Okay.
your goal is to expand services. And you know
Preserve
that
and
being
expand.
part of the general fund, that's not an option. As all of us know, none of our departments are expanding, certainly right now. And I do see the dollar, or the number here, we have 48 of Michigan's 83 counties are funded with the veterans millage.
And there will be more. I think I put in your analysis that 6-7 years ago, there were 8.
Yeah.
So this is not just us that has decided to do this, so.
Other questions or comments? Sonny?
The tough part about discussions when we put referendums on the ballot and we ask people to tax themselves to provide certain services. What is our course of action if the people say no?
That would be up to this body. I guess the Veterans Services would be at the board's mercy at that point in time. So there's certain things that you have to do and certain things that you have to fund, and there's discretionary things that are done that are very, very valuable to our citizens, to our veterans, to the entire community. The VA is a huge economic contributor to the area, all areas within the country. So we would have nowhere else to turn.
So the discussion that we have on a regular basis is the fact that this county board, through the county's general fund budget, provides hundreds of different services to our community. All of those services come with a price tag. So when you get to a point, if you're going to a referendum, and the scariest thing about referendums to me is when I ask the public, do you support this service? When they say no, am I prepared to cut that service back from where it's at? And that, you know, that's a discussion that we have to have. You know, if the people say no, whether it be the Veterans Affairs or the Commission on Aging or the Senior Center millage or whatever the millage is, if the people say no, what is our course of action?
There and again, it would come back to this board as to whether you believe, based on the results of, say, that referendum, whether you still wanted to go above and beyond what you're mandated to provide by state law. So it would fall right back into your lap. It's a very good point, and thank you for bringing it up. It was discussed. Will the voters be telling you, we don't want veteran services if they vote down a millage proposal?
Tom, did you?
Perhaps not. Maybe they're just voting down any additional taxes, not necessarily the service, but I think we're willing to cross that bridge when we get to it.
Tom?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, give a little bit of history on that. As we were going through budget cuts last year, you were going to be given a 4.9. We didn't do that with the understanding that you would try to go out and get a millage, and that would take care of that. You are not a mandated service, and so this year, if we're not able to gather enough savings for some of the things that we're doing, we will have to go through the non-mandated services and make cuts. The discussion was that it was hard for you to strategically plan out any long-term improvements if you didn't know what your financial base would be. So we looked at it in terms of 6 years would allow you to plan out long-term for programs, and you would look at some additional grants and things to get additional programs in place, but you would have a core base of income that wouldn't be suspect to change based on the county's pension problems. So the intent was the stability for that budget item, and that's why we didn't cut it last year, 4.9, because we were going out for the millage to see if that would work. Now, I can tell you, if nothing changes as of going forward, they will have to take cuts next year because of the pension problems. So that was to alleviate that, and that was a solution. That's why we did it.
I also want to point out, Council just told me a few minutes ago that this board will have to make a decision by, what, May 10th?
May 10th.
May 10th. So we'll be making a decision on this pretty quick. Other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I think we do have a little longer than May 10th because we've now asked for it to be placed on the November ballot.
Oh,
November ballot, you have more time. I'm sorry, Bob.
all right, I was told it was going to be...
We were originally thinking August, but we were removed from several agendas, and if we want to give our millage committee an opportunity to make sure that proper information is given to the public and we're educating them, they're going to need more time than, say, June and July, just to do that. So just to clarify that, we're asking to be placed on the November ballot.
And what is the cutoff date then?
I think it's in August sometime. Sarah might be able to help.
Sarah's
Sarah's digging
actively
over
looking it
there. I
up.
see your nose
Look at
going back
that.
and forth.
Ballot wording has to be forwarded to the county clerk within 2 days, August 16th. Yes. May 10th was for August, and August 16th is for the November general election.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pretty cool. Okay. Yes, sir.
One other question as we talk about tax monies and funding Veterans Affairs. We've talked about this millage will bring up $563,800. Do you have, and I'm sure I have it somewhere, but I can't remember off the top of my head, when the state determined that veterans could be exempt from property taxes, do you know how much money Grand Traverse County lost by that decision?
No, I'm sure those figures are readily available.
I know they are.
It turned into a lot more statewide than the legislature ever intended for it to do. And there's been legislation pending this year to replace that with a tax credit out of the state's checkbook instead of the counties and the townships, and that's pending in Lansing right now. But it was 4 or 5, 6 times more than their analysis thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but I know that the loss of revenue to Grand Traverse County and all of the taxing entities in our community was significant when the state passed the legislation that said veterans could be exempt from paying property
They
tax.
gave no thought to that whatsoever. They asked nobody who knew
Imagine that.
anything about veterans, what the effect was going to be, or anything else. So they didn't even look at how other states did similar things. So, but we'll see where that goes. As of right now, it's the law of the land.
Okay, anything else you want to say to us, John? Oh, go ahead.
Is that all veterans or disabled veterans? That 100%? Okay, all right.
Okay. Anybody else? Staff? Okay. Chuck, do you want to say any more to us?
No, I know that you will be making a decision. If more comes up, you can steer your constituents our way. We meet every fourth Thursday at 8 a.m. At the Lafreniere Building. The committee meets, public meetings, just like yours. Anybody is welcome to attend. 8 a.m. Is when they have those meetings. And if you need anything else, just let us know and we'll provide it for you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to open this up to public comment about this particular item. And so come on up. If you want to make a public comment, tell us your name and address.
I'm James Wagner, 837 Rose Street, Traverse City, Michigan. I'm chairman of the board of the Grand Traverse County Department of Veterans Affairs Office. A couple of things I would like to say in regards to the question about how far out our benefits, the government, as far as taking care of veterans. In 2009, I was diagnosed with ischemic heart disease. I had 5 stents. Under provision in VA, it says anybody with ischemic heart disease with exposure to Agent Orange, which I had, is entitled to disability compensation. I was diagnosed and had 5 stents. I was rated at 60% disability. I received it for 1 month because I got better. I had 5 stents and they took the 60% away. They lowered it to 10% with Chuck and my wife, who is a case manager, not for VA, but she does case management work. They looked into it and they decided that I should be at least 30%, minimum 30% disabled. We filed for that. And I'm still waiting for back pay from 2009 for a request that we made 2.5 years ago. So to give you an idea how far VA hopes I die before they have to pay me the back money. That's neither here nor there. That's bringing you up to date that way. As chairman of the board for the last 6 years, I decided to, we were doing veteran work for Leelanau and Benzie County, so I said to Chuck, if we're going to do work for Benzie and Leelanau counties, we're going to get paid for it. So we negotiated and we made contracts with Leelanau and Benzie, and those 2 contracts amount to about $70,000 a year. We thought at that time that $70,000 would come into our funds and help us get people to staff our office and what have you, and it hasn't happened. For the last 6 years, I've requested at least 1 additional person, and we've gotten, the only thing that we've gotten is a half a person in 6 years. And the load just keeps rising and rising, and veterans are put on the back burner. We're having to put veterans on the back burner just like VA is doing, and that's not acceptable. I came home from Vietnam on Friday the 13th of March in 1970. I got spit on, I got called baby killer. I arrived in Traverse City 2 hours before I left. I went to work on Monday, and I worked every day until I retired. I have no grudge with VA or with whatever. I did my job and I'm serving, I'm giving back by being in charge of this board. We need this millage because the county is suffering and we're tired of being put on the back burner, not by you folks entirely, but yet you haven't given us the requests that we've asked for in the 11 or 12 years that I've been on this board.
Thank you so much. Okay, anybody else? And don't be shy.
Jake Rossi, 1601 East 8th Street, Traverse City, Michigan. One of the things, Chuck did a great job of explaining, I think, of the ramifications and really does a great job of explaining a lot of things with our budget, but what Chuck, I don't think, is very good at is telling you how efficient and well-run this office truly is. And this is one of the few offices, I feel, in the county that is not only takes in money, but brings money back into the community. And I think that that really can't be overlooked, that every dollar that we put into this office is going to return money back into this community through compensation and pension and timely receipt of that compensation and pension. It's in your packet, and I think it's really notable to look at, is that in the last 5 years, we've gone from $32 million per month. Is that correct, Chuck? Yeah. 32 million, I'm sorry, that'd be nice, 32 million a month. $32 million annually to $55 million annually in federal dollars that come into the three-county area. And what does that mean to your constituents? That means stable property values, increasing property values. You know, these people take that money from compensation and pension and go out and spend it in the communities. They buy gas, they buy groceries, they create jobs, they create value for the area. If we continue to cut back on that, we're going to see potentially a reduction in that money to our community. We all want federal dollars to come into our community. Michigan is near the bottom of that recapture continuum in the 50 states for federal dollars that are brought into the area. And Grand Traverse County in the state of Michigan is actually one of the higher, the larger dollar amounts that are brought in per veteran. I think we're at about $5,800 a year, Chuck, and I think that the state average is $5,800 or $5,500 per veteran. So not only, you know, when constituents are saying, hey, we don't want any more taxes, it's like, hey, I live in Grand Traverse County, I don't want any more taxes either. However, this is a great part of our economic base, and it can be a growing part of our economic base that brings true value to all of us. So I think that that's something that can't be overlooked.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Ross?
Yeah, hopefully I know the answer.
Did you serve in the military?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you in the military in 1990?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Your dad was my AP calculus teacher, and I remember him standing in front of the classroom with tears in his eyes telling us about his son. And
Sons, both of us.
son, yeah, typical Traverse City story. I figured you had to be the guy that he was talking about.
Well, both his sons were over in
Well, he was very proud.
Desert Storm. Well, that's good.
Yep,
I'm glad
and
to
that
hear
was right about
I'm
the
proud of my
time
dad,
that
too.
Desert Storm happened. He was the best teacher I ever had.
Me too.
Although I don't use calculus to this day, but he was the best teacher I ever had. But I just wanted to let you know that 26 years ago, we remember hearing your story. So thank you for
good
your
to know.
service and all of you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome home. Okay, Gordy, please come up, sir.
Oh, yes, okay.
Before Gordy speaks, he sent us a letter,
I'll talk to him. Thank you.
questions about this,
Oh, it's right here.
and the intelligence and thought that he put into this stunned me. Not that I thought that we're smart, but I just thought, man,
You're not
this
on my
guy is
3 minutes,
smart.
are you?
Yeah. Pardon?
You're not on my 3 minutes,
We
are
don't
you?
have time limits on this.
Anyway, I was very impressed, and thank you for writing that letter.
Gordy LaPointe, 6375 Plum Drive, Acme Township. I'm looking at this from a standpoint of purely a budget and numbers. I'm not looking into any other aspect of it. This would be the same way I would look at a budget from back when I was working. My managers would come to me, give me the facts, and I'd look at the numbers. And I've got some questions that maybe can be answered, but I think are worth noting. First of all, just to make sure we have the basis correct, the tax will raise approximately $564,000 a year. Of that, $11,000, and I'm reading off the documents that you provided, by $11,000 or 2% will be siphoned off to the DDA and the TIFs and other things. So $553,000 will go directly to the Veterans Department. But $459,000 will be returned that are currently at the Veterans back to the general fund. So 81% goes back to the general fund, leaving the DVA with an 11% gain or 20% gain in their budget. So the numbers are 2% goes to the DDA, 81% ends up in the general fund, 11% gain for the veterans. So I think you have to be very careful when you word this, that I think it's still a saleable thing, but you have to really make sure that it's explained properly so people understand that's not a net $563K gain to the veterans. Now, my questions are, in reading the documentation, looking at the numbers that were presented, it appears that the primary reason for the budget increase is to add staff in order to reduce the current wait time from 32 days to 10 days, which was articulated here. But in looking at the raw numbers, the question I would have if someone was presenting this to me is, why are wait times at a historical high when in 2014, just a few years ago, the wait time was only 14 days? And the number of claims filed on behalf of veterans has declined year over year. So I'm sure there's explanations there, but just looking at these numbers would have a question. Then the question I would have in looking at this is, how will increasing the staffing level from 5 to 6, as proposed, or one additional staff member, reduce the overall waiting period by 300%, from 30 days to a goal of 10 days? So you're increasing your capacity, I'm the manufacturing guy, you're increasing your capacity by 20%, but you're going to have a 300% gain in productivity. I just think it probably needs to be addressed. The other question I have, and it kind of is leading off of what I had sent to you previously, and looking at the numbers, the question I would have is, why is the Grand Traverse DVA cost significantly higher per resident veteran compared to a sample of 24 other counties? On average, they're 71% higher. Whereas the return to it was mentioned before, how much comes back to the community, Grand Traverse veterans are only receiving 2.7% higher than the state average. So we're spending 71% more per veteran, but the gain coming back, the more additional benefits they're deriving, is only 2% higher than the state average. We had a couple more. I'll skip that one. Okay, something that perhaps we cleared up. On page 28 is a list of the mandated benefits by state statute in the document that you all received. These are specific mandates that are funded by direct grants from the state in the amount of $48,000 annually. So they have the mandated requirements, which are funded by the state for $48,000. So I think it's a little misleading in the frequently asked questions where it says you get no state funding for the program. The state does fund the mandated requirements. Now, is it adequate? I don't know, but it is $48K. And then I guess the last point on this, they certainly have a compelling reason why they need to produce or provide additional services. However, I'm sure the police department, the health department, the courts will all come in with equally compelling reasons. When you go and talk to them about cutting their budgets, they will come up with facts and figures every bit as powerful as these folks are providing. So the concern I would have is, you're going to address one issue at the onset, but you better be able to answer to the rest of the folks on how you're going to do that. And I guess just lastly, again, is the point on making sure you sell this properly, because if you sell it strictly as providing benefit to the veterans, of the money, the additional taxes you're going to collect, only 11%, after it's all netted out, actually goes to the veterans. And that's a concern. You have to be able to sell that properly.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up, please. You still doing bench presses, Jack?
Not officially. Jack O'Malley, 19199 Ridgeview Lane, Lake Ann. I'm chairman of the Citizens Committee, and the reason I've gotten involved is because I believe in police, I believe in fire, I believe in trash pickup, I believe in snow plowing. Mr. Cook does a great job with the county. But I believe that as a country, we made a promise to our veterans. You do this, you get this. And our federal government is a mess. I can't really do a whole lot about that. But there are a lot of men and women who serve this country who live in our region, 3 counties that Chuck's office helps. We owe it to them. I think one of the biggest things about this particular millage that we're asking for is, first of all, I hate taxes just like everybody else. But in Lansing and in other places, fees are raised, taxes are raised. But this is something where we're going to the people and saying, will you do this? Will you raise your taxes 78 cents, whatever it is a month, to help the veterans? They can say no, but let them have the chance to say yes. We're always saying support the troops. This is an opportunity to support the troops that came home. So I would say, as the chairman of this committee, we are going to do our best to present things honestly. I've been involved in some other millages, and I've seen some of those millages fail because they haven't been honest. We're going to be as straightforward as we can. And if we can help Chuck move this stuff through, just curious, but you say the wait now is at 30 days. What happens if you lose a staffer and a half? What's that wait time become?
It's hard to tell, but it will go up.
Yeah. So let the people decide. Put it on the ballot. That's all you have to decide, is to allow the people to decide to raise that millage. They can say no. You let them, give them the chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, anybody else, please come up, yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carol Turner. I live at 925 Huron Hills Drive in Traverse City. My background and why I'm standing here today is the fact that right now I am the regional coordinator for the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency for the 10-county area from Emmett County down to Missaukee over to Manistee, including Grand Traverse, Benzie, and Leelanau. My previous background is a veteran service officer for about 15 years. I spent about 6 years in Chuck's office, and I've spent the last almost 9 years in Macomb County prior to taking this job with Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency. So I have some background. I know what happens with Chuck's office.
Would you move that mic a little closer to you? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, yeah.
My concerns are this. When I left here and I went to Macomb County to take a job down there, I was one of 2 service officers. And think of Macomb County and the size that it is in comparison to Grand Traverse County. It was 60 days or more for someone to get an appointment to see me. Macomb went out about 6 years ago and asked for a millage for the Veteran Services Office from the people. Overwhelmingly, it was approved. By the time that I retired from there last June and took this position, we were up to 6 service officers and a wait time of maybe 1 to 2 weeks to get an appointment. So I can see a direct benefit from having worked there as to what a dedicated millage can do. A couple of things that have been said with people that I just wanted to reiterate, and I'm sure I haven't seen all of Chuck's package, but probably these numbers are included. The Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, as it stands today, was established by the governor in 2013 when he discovered that Michigan had the 11th highest veteran population, and we ranked as a state 53rd as far as the number of VA dollars that we were bringing back into this state. That was below Guam and Puerto Rico and D.C., and it was eye-opening for everyone. So what part of my job at this point is to find veterans who have never touched the VA system in any way, who may have benefits coming to them. Chuck is not happy that I'm trying to find more veterans for him, but nevertheless, that is what the state is trying to do, and we're waiting a couple more months and we'll have some new numbers as far as where Michigan is now ranking, no longer 53rd, but higher, we are hoping. So there is definitely a push from the state of Michigan to seek veterans. Counties that had millages, as Chuck said, were about 8. We're about half of the counties now that have gone to a dedicated veterans millage to keep their organization going, meeting the needs of the veteran, because it isn't a mandated office, and that's a part of the problem. If this were not to be funded through general funds, or his funds were to be reduced, he basically could not serve the needs of Grand Traverse, let alone Benzie and Leelanau, and we've done that for a very long time.
Thank you.
I think that basically is what I wanted to say. Certainly, we bring in VA dollars to Grand Traverse County. You can't see that coming into the general fund, and that was a part of what Jake was saying. It doesn't come into your coffer, but in fact, it comes in through property taxes and other things that are spent. So I just wanted to make known who I was, that I'm in support of the millage, and I definitely think that you should support putting it on the ballot.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else?
One point of clarification.
Coming back up, Chuck. You
On
can,
some of the points Mr.
yeah.
made.
You're not limited to 3 minutes. You can talk as much
Thank
as
you.
you
This
want.
will be quick, though. No county in the state of Michigan receives any direct funding from the state for any of their mandated services that they have to provide for veterans, or their discretionary services to provide services. So we don't get anything from the state, never have. We don't get 1 penny from them. We did in 2015 get a small grant. The state did, when they created a Michigan Veterans Agency, they have made couple $100,000 worth of grants available to counties, but only if they enhance services. We promoted an employee in 2015. The Board of Commissioners accepted a $15,000 grant to help fund that. So, but that's the only funding we've ever gotten from the state of Michigan. As far as for any of our services. So some of his other questions, I would invite you to give me a call. I think we've talked on the phone previously, and I can see if I can clarify some of those for you. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Chuck is up.
Yeah,
Can I
go
ask
ahead,
one?
yeah.
I wanted to ask you again about the 3-county partnership, and this is a millage for Grand Traverse County residents. And what we would continue to do is bill or invoice, however your partnership is, contract with Benzie and Leelanau, and those dollars would just come in as they have before, probably increase since you're expanding services if it passes. And I'm curious about the potential of a veterans millage in the other counties, or as you talk about your need for another staff member and that we haven't been able to grant that request in Grand Traverse, has anyone thought of asking Benzie or Leelanau to fund an extra employee at the Veterans Affairs Office, since they are servicing the citizens of Leelanau and Benzie? Granted, it's geographically in Traverse City, but it seems to me that many, as I did my research, many of the counties are multi-county Veterans Affairs offices, not unlike well, we're looking into things like that for 911 or health department services and that kind of thing. And I'm curious about the relationship, the economic relationship. I think that there could be a way for it to be enhanced, because unfortunately, this war has been going on for so long, it's hard for me to remember the year. I think it was 2002. But every single day, we have new veterans going to war and coming back from war. And we are going to be seeing the ramifications of that for decades and decades, and probably a couple generations. This isn't a problem that's going away, and I don't want to treat it like a problem, because it's not. It's an honor to serve them that served us, but we can't deny the fact that dollar-wise, we're just creating a larger and larger group of veterans every single day that this war drags on. So I'm wondering about your discussions. It sounds like your group has had a lot of talk and brought up questions and potential problems. I'm very curious about more of a partnership with Benzie and Leelanau County, because I understand population-wise we are much larger than them. But unfortunately, and it will continue to grow, and Benzie and Leelanau are also retirement counties, as Grand Traverse County is, and many of our veterans are retirees, or, well, one day we all will be. I hope we get there. And we're going to be servicing more and more of those veterans. I would like to know that there is something that our Veterans Department is looking at to change funding contracts, agreements, however. But most of all, I'm interested in a partnership with Benzie and Leelanau to come in at a 0.5 FTE each and put somebody else in that office to help the Grand Traverse County staff.
That can always be discussed. I know exactly what you're saying. And just to clarify, for VA benefit purposes, you have a wartime package of benefits and a peacetime package of benefits. For the wartime benefit package, the United States has been at war since August 2nd of 1990. So 2 generations of veterans are now wartime veterans, and they'll be entitled to benefits up until the day they die, so a lot longer than 2002. So that's.
I was thinking Iraq or
No.
Afghanistan was.
Yeah, well, that was the
2002.
that was the last of it, but for benefit purposes, it went back to Desert Storm.
Desert Storm.
That's been open since then. So the figures can stagger your mind when you do that. The way we have calculated well, to get back to your original first question, was Benzie County levies a millage. Leelanau County does not. So that's an individual choice of those counties. So all counties have the ability to, if they choose to do so, or they can ask their voters to approve an operating millage. Those are the funding mechanisms for that. In its simplest form, we run a computer program check, and we determine a percentage of our workload that Benzie or Leelanau County residents that we service, and it's historically anywhere between 12 and 14% of our annual workload. They are then charged that percentage of our total budget. So in short of, and we do have offices in Beulah and Suttons Bay, but short of tick marks on a legal pad as people come in, that's the easiest way for us to do it, is to once a year scan our database, and we do it by zip code. Who's from Benzie County, who's from Leelanau County, what percentage of our overall workload were from those counties, and then those counties are charged that percentage.
So you invoice them.
Once a year.
So the Benzie County millage, I'm assuming all of the dollars that are collected from that millage end up going to the Veterans Affairs office here. They aren't providing anything in their county.
They pay all of their direct benefits. You pay out entitlements to veterans and their families. We have an emergency assistance fund that we pay out of, direct benefit payment, and then we are required to help assist with a monetary burial allowance. All veterans and veteran spouses and widows, they pay their own of those, which is funded through their millage.
So that goes through the millage.
And then they pay us our fee to provide services for them.
Do we know that if this millage passes and services are expanded, that we're going to be able to get the increased dollars from Leelanau and Benzie?
It'll come up in negotiations. Either one of these counties could choose to go out on their own anytime they want to. They could choose to do that. We live in an area where we actually garner quite a bit of value from when we provide similar services, and we can do that over a larger geographic area. It's much less expensive for them. They get full-time services for, 3/4 time cost, and, we receive the revenue to help offset our costs. So, and we had, when draft notices came out, there was no county border lines. It's
Right.
just, it's hard to explain to people. When Benzie County services were less than what they are now, their residents were coming here. We live in a hub. Everybody comes to Traverse City. They were coming here to go to the VA clinic, And the VA clinic would say, hey, go up and see the Veterans Office, they can get you a pension, or whatever. So it was very hard for us to turn those people away. So a lot of times they got serviced. So this was a win-win situation. Their federal recoveries have gone up substantially since they started getting consistent services out there. But they could back out of their contract anytime they want and branch out on their own if they wanted to. If we use that same formula or calculation, determine their contract amount, and our budget increases, and they're to pay a percentage of that based on their usage, then they would be asked to pay their appropriate fair share of that. Does that help? Okay.
Any other questions?
Isn't it true that if one of these counties decides...
No, we can't do this. We can't do this. You've got to come up. Yeah.
You're on TV. You
Yeah,
have to be
I got to run this meeting a certain way.
As our people go out to Benzie and Leelanau County, they take their computers with them that they're only able to get into. It takes, what, about 2 years for one of your people to get to that point where they can use those computers? And they have to go to continuing education. In fact, you've got education coming up here in the next week or two where the office is going to be closed because everybody has to go down for mandatory training. And it would be, at this point in time, these counties wouldn't even be interested in getting involved in it because of the amount of schooling and training and everything else. To train somebody to be a case manager and get the certifications from the federal government takes at least 3 years.
Okay, thank you. I'm breaking protocol here. I want to get back to it. Thank you very much. It's got to be 3-minute comments. Anybody else? Anybody else? I want you to come up and talk if you want to. One time on the same issue. Okay, any of the staff, any of the board? Okay, am I supposed to do anything different than I'm doing? Okay, so I think then we've covered this and had our meeting about that, and we next move to items removed from the consent calendar, which are none. Department action items. Now, before we do that, I want to ask council a question. Chris Cook is here, and he wants to do a closed session. At the end, it's not on the...
Yeah,
Is it on the docket?
Number 16,
On the agenda.
15.
If
closed
required.
session.
Closed session
It says if required, so we can handle it then. Okay, so we will have a closed session. I just wondered how to do that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we go to department action items. We've got planning and development. Who takes that? I'll bet it's John.
John is coming up.
You got it.
See you, John.
Good evening, John Syken, Planning Director for Grand Traverse County. This is an item that actually was in front of you. A couple weeks ago, we had a public hearing for, this is a revolving loan fund application as part of the Community Development Block Grant Fund for Tentcraft, which is looking to utilize $578,000 in a CDBG loan to purchase land for the building of a new Tentcraft operation, a 60,000 square foot building at which they'll create an additional 17 jobs. That was the public hearing. This is a resolution to forward that application process to the state of Michigan. I think in the future, one of the things we're trying to do is that we would have, you can do the resolution and the hearing at the same time. Well, the reason we did not do that for this particular application is that we wanted to have the Ventures North Review Committee occur before the resolution. So typically that would happen in advance. So this is hopefully not going to be typical process. We could do the public hearing and resolution at the same time. But this is just for your approval, is to approve the resolution for the submittal of the revolving loan fund application for Tentcraft to the state of Michigan.
So you're asking us to approve the resolution, is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Okay, Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution. It's loading as presented. Here it is, to approve the resolution for the Community Development Block Grant Loan Fund application for Tentcraft.
Is there
Support.
a second? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, yes.
Mr. Chairman, for a long time I've sat here, I've always supported economic development in our community. Was very upfront a couple weeks ago at the public hearing and advised this board that my company does do a significant amount of work for Tentcraft. I do believe they are without question a class act, and they do a great job, provide a lot of good jobs in our community. Commissioner Kropa has asked the prosecutor to ask me to abstain from this vote, so I will be abstaining from this vote this evening.
Thank you, Sonny. Okay, so we've got a motion, we've got a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will please note that Commissioner Wheelock abstained. Thank you.
So noted.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, what's next? Okay, old unfinished business, well, we don't have any of that. New business, no. Second, public comment. Okay. Commissioner reports.
I was at township meetings this month, Mayfield and Grant Township, and their fire department that services those townships is from Wexford County. The Wexford County is asking these townships for money for radios so that they can get the 800 megahertz radios. I have a problem that those townships are all paying a surcharge and they're not getting radios. I am told that Jason is probably, possibly, maybe gonna find 2 radios for Wexford County that they can borrow, rent, or buy. I have a problem with that, just that they all are paying that surcharge and they're being asked to supplement those radios. Just want it noted that not all of the outlying townships are being treated the same as the inner townships.
I think that's the EMS, not the fire.
It's fire. It's Buckley Fire.
Oh, the Buckley Fire.
Yep.
Grant Township contracts
Yep.
with Buckley Fire to supplement the services that are provided to them by Green Lake Township and Blair Township.
We did discuss this at the Board of Directors, and we knew flat out, about Buckley. I think there's one, MMR was the other one, when Whitewater took an MMR. But these were Grand Traverse County taxpayers that paid for the radio system, and their township government chose to contract with another county, and that was that. I mean, it all tied into where the dollars came from, and
Right, which those townships are also paying that surcharge.
But their primary fire department is still
the primary
Green
fire
Lake
department is
Township
Grand Traverse Rural
in
Fire.
Grand Traverse County Rural
The
Division.
real issue is with the the EMS, the couple of ambulances that are served through Buckley Fire. Because geographically, if you're having a heart attack, it's a little bit better if Buckley is coming to get you for some of those folks. But they're predominantly served by Grand Traverse Rural Fire. I mean, we went through this over and over with the board, and they're not getting a shoddy deal on this at all. As a matter of fact, the residents that benefited the most from this radio system are those residents that lived in the zero coverage district, which was those people. The 2% grants at the tribe, they're giving out grants for 800 radios for systems to become compliant with Grand Traverse County. So I would certainly recommend that.
Which they have, Buckley has applied for those and been denied.
That's weird, Fife Lake Ambulance just got 4. They should work out a trade.
They should.
But I do want you to know that we did address that very much with Chief Weber and also with Roy from North Flight and all of the agencies that work out there. But the benefit to the citizens in those townships overall far outweighs 2 or 3 radios that, they may have to purchase to be compliant, but I highly doubt they'll have to. They're working on it right now. Our Board of Directors subcommittee met on this specific issue, so it's not being unheard.
Okay.
You satisfied?
I'm never satisfied.
It's Ron.
That's a loaded
All right.
question.
It's Ron.
All right, any other notices?
I went to the Chamber of Commerce Top 10 Small Business Breakfast the other day. I know Tom and Jen were there too. And it was a really, really nice celebration of the economic development factors here in Grand Traverse County, and good stories and good people. And it was a great thing with the Chamber. I also wanted to point out in the staff report, I didn't pull it off of the consent calendar, but in the county parks, we've put 2 years of our lives into developing Twin Lakes Park. And we set a goal of $70,000 for revenue, and we met it already before April 1st of this year. And that's noted in there. So over $70,000 of weddings and special events have been booked already before we even made it, into the second quarter of the year. So we're well on our way to having that park be revenue neutral, which was our entire goal, and it may just become revenue positive for the county. So I just wanted to point that out.
Very cool. Congratulations. Okay, anything else, folks? Then we're going to go into closed session with Mr.
I'll
Cook.
make a motion.
Oh, we have to vote. Okay, let's do that.
I'll make the motion to go into closed session for the purposes of discussing with our attorney the Jetter case, or what it's called.
Carlson versus
Carlson
Grand
case.
Traverse County.
Okay.
I'll always call it the Jetter case.
Support.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
Aye.
Oh, roll call,
roll
okay.
for this?
Need all of us.
Crawford,
Yes.
Klaus,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Propa,
Yes.
Lathrop.
Yes. Now we can do it. Okay.
We don't expect to have any decision or announcement coming out of this meeting for the public's purpose, right, Chris?
Thank you, Bob.